We said last time that Lagid Shvacha Shel Aharon Shiloshina, that something that totally epitomized Rav Aharon was this idea of a Reina Vinkela, of a pure corner in American Jewry, and not giving into the times, and being a European Rosh Hashiva, and keeping things going the way they had been, etc. And when we imagine and we envision such a picture, so we think it would go together with someone who was longing for the good old days, his days in Kletsk, and not dealing with the American reality of apple pie eating, baseball playing, Bachram in America. Rav Aharon, as we mentioned, was a Shem Davar. He was a Gadol. He was Meshamash Reb Chaim Ozer. He was around the Chavetz Chaim. The greatest of the yeshiva world would have been his students back in Europe in a whole different time. And now here he was with American Bachram, a whole different thing. And in fact, that was a divide which some European Rosh Yeshiva couldn't overcome. The idea of dealing with a whole different type of bria, a whole different type of creation, the American boys that they dealt with. But the truth is about Rav Aharon, from what I've read, is that was the opposite. Rav Aharon never spoke about Kletsk. He wasn't talking about it, that he was forward-looking. So that mamish shows the shleimus, the completion of this side of the picture. Lagid Shvach Shel Aharon Shiloshina, I'm bringing a strong Yiddishkeit, I'm bringing an authentic Yiddishkeit, I'm bringing a European Yiddishkeit, but I'm bringing it to America, and I'm bringing it to these Bachar. I'm not looking over my shoulder. I'm not hoping for better days or different days. This is my world. This is my understanding of what was going on from a little I gleaned. And in fact, a wonderful story is told by Yisrael Belsky, the Rosh Yeshiva of Torah V'das, in his book, that one of the greatest of the Rosh Yeshiva back then, Belsky was a younger Rebbe then, and he was in the Rebbe's room, and Yisrael and Rav Elia Chazan, one of the great Magidei Shir of America, came into the room, and Rav Elia Chazan, was in the room. And another Ram came in, unmentioned, unnamed, came in, and he said, American Bachram, they're gefährlich, they're terrible Bachram. And Rav Elia Chazan, quickly got up and he said, no, there are two Bachram here who are as good as the Bachram, there's two Bachram here that are as good as the best Bachram in Europe. That's what Rav Elia said. And Rav Belsky commented and chuckled about this story later, and he said, they were good Bachram, but they weren't as good as the best Bachram in Europe. But he said that Rav Elia Chazan, this exact point, Rav Elia Chazan had the attitude, he believed in the American Bachram, and that's what made him successful as a Maggid Shir. And in fact, it's really a pasuk. Im shalten al yom rishonim berach pasuk lo mechachma shaltazos. If you say what were the days used to be like in the good old days, etc., lo mechachma shaltazos. You don't say such from wisdom. It's not a wise position. Always longing for different days. Of course, we say Chadesh Yameinu Kikedem, and we learn from the other generations. We're speaking about the Gedolim, etc. But a person has to be takua, and has to be kavua, and he has to be set in the reality of who he's building today and what he's doing and working with himself and seeing the milas of his door and the tzrachim of his door, the necessities of his door, and the needed things. And this is a balance that the Rav Elia Chazan had. There's obviously something that Rabbi Belsky had. Another one is, of course, Mendel Kaplan was a famous European Maggid Shir, and many others. My father-in-law recently told me that his Rosh Yeshiva in RJJ was such a person. I forgot to say that Vorshevskik, Masha Kazet, that they were deeply European, but they understood the American mindset and they wanted to penetrate into America. And they knew that gripping back for the older days wouldn't do them well, and it wasn't chachma, wasn't smart. If you think about it, it's not smart. Again, we learn from the earlier Doris, and we strive to understand the early Doris, to be like them, and to learn from their ways. And like Rav Aharon was a European Rosh Hashiva, and we'll move on. But with the American Bacher, with the American reality, not looking back and not trying to be something, not trying to work with people that weren't there. This is not a wise position. A wise position is a person lives with his tafkid, lives with the situation. And that was really, we'll talk about in other times, about Rav Aharon had a historical sense, a mamish historical sense about what he was doing, and he was going with that historical sense to be a historical figure and to implant in America this ruach that he wanted to, a new yet old ruach. He had to not look back at the same time. And that was another part of his godless.